Hello, welcome back to the Big Fellas podcast. It's Mark here with another episode, and it's a time for an expert guest. And not just any guest, we'll call this a knockout guest, shall we say. A man of many talents, Olympic boxer, Olympic medalist, shall we say, professional boxer, 11 wins, I believe, and now a pro wrestler and a men's weight loss coach. Really excited to introduce this gentleman. It is Anthony Ogogo. Hello, Anthony. How are you?
Hey, mate. I'm wonderful. Thank you, sir. How are you?
Yeah, really good, mate. Delighted to welcome you onto the show today. Yeah, as I just, with the introduction, I think there's so much we could cover off here. And I think we laughed before we started. This could be a 14-hour podcast if we're not careful. So, yeah, I think we just need to start carefully and sort of work our way through it. But the point I want to start with was when I was chatting with Darren a couple of weeks back, and we kind of made a joke about, we said, we need to get a boxer in about how they make weight for a fight, because I don't know if you've heard of it. I play in a football league called Man v Fat, which is football league centered around men's weight loss. It's a brilliant setup. You weigh in every week, and if you lose weight, you get an extra goal added to your score. That's mainly the premise. And so, you know, on a Monday when it's match day, lads are doing everything they can to make weight, so to speak. So I'm curious, how is it that boxers make weight? How does that whole thing work?
It's the hardest part of boxing. I'm not gonna lie. It's the hardest part of boxing. You know, boxing's the hardest sport in the world. Again, bludgeoned in the head by other world-class fighters is difficult. But where in athletics you run or you jump or you swim and swimming or play football. I'm a big football fan myself. Play football. Now try doing that being a stone and a half, 2 stone under your natural weight, right? It's very hard. Boxing is very the making weight is the hard part. It requires a lot of discipline, a lot of determination, a lot of hard work. Mark knows that's why I'm on the podcast today. This is what I do. I help men drop fat, also build muscle. It's very important. But men, we don't just want to lose weight. We need muscle. The stronger we are, the longer we live. The stronger we are, the more muscle we have, the more calories we burn at rest, the higher our metabolic rate. The stronger you are, the better quality of life you have, and the longer you live. Now, I said it to a client literally 3 hours ago. Now, nobody on the planet wants to be 80 years old, and when they go to the bathroom to do number 2, require a carer there to help them get up, right? And that's why we train in our 30s, in our 40s, in our 50s. That's why we work out and we build muscle, because we want to be strong for us now, also us in our 60s, 70s, and 80s, right? We want to have the strength to be able to get off the toilet. So, yes, losing weight is very, very important. Yes, building muscle and getting strong is also very, very important. And to go back to what I was saying, one of my little catchphrases is, I've done things that no other coach on the planet have done. I've lost over, and it's actually well over 1,000 kilograms of weight, right? Over a metric ton of weight in my life I've lost across an 18-year boxing career, right? My first fight, mate, I was 12 years old, and I went to the gym. I was 12 years old to go training, and there was a boxing show in my hometown that Friday night, and I wasn't supposed to be on the card. I'd been boxing for a couple of months, and my coach went to me. He said, "You got a fight on Friday." I was like, "What? What do you mean? Like, I got a fight?" He said, "Yeah, you got to be 51 kilograms. You got to be 52 kilograms. No, it's 55 and a half. You'll be 51 kilograms." I was like, I had to lose like 4 kilograms, over half a stone as a 12-year-old. And that night I got there, and you ask you how we do it. This is how I did it for a long time, right? The bin bag, a black bin bag on my skin, right? Get out on up and down the sea from one end, hitting the bag, hitting the pad, sparring, black bin bed, drawing the sweat out, the most unhealthy, unsafe way to do it ever. But that's all we knew back then in 2001. And I got to the ring on Friday. I weighed in 51.4 kilograms. I was underweight, which is amazing. And I knocked the kid out in the second round. And from that moment on, I was losing weight. I was on an 18-year lifelong diet. And as I said, I've lost more weight than anybody else on the planet. That teaches what I do now. All the coaches out there that got in shape once and stayed in shape, it's amazing. I did it on the P18 for 18 years, over 250 times. And now I take great pleasure in helping men do the exact same. Now, not one of my guys runs in the black bin bag. I took all the best bits from being a boxer and got rid of all the bad, all the unhealthy, all the fads. I know what works now, and it's what I do now. I'm a professional wrestler, as you said. On a weekend, I do this all week, and I'm really happy with my life after, and I'm sure we'll go there, buddy. But after a really demoralizing, devastating eye injury that ended my boxing career, I'm actually really happy in my life right now. And like I said, I get to perform and live out a second childhood dream as a professional wrestler, which is awesome. And I get to change men's lives on a daily basis, which is just, I'm very full in my life right now.
Fantastic. And we do go through sort of highs and lows, I guess, don't we? And certainly I've had my own challenges over certainly in the last 12 months. But yeah, you know what? I'm in a good place myself right now.
Good,
Like I
mate.
said,
Good.
podcast has just won an award, so we're dead chuffed about that. We've got some big guests coming on, and we've got great guests in yourself. So yeah, things are going well on that side of things. So
Awesome.
awesome. I guess there's loads to unpack from what we just spoke about. I wanted to talk about the early boxing career. I love that. And what made you get into boxing?
Where are we going to boxing? Great questions. In reality, the story is I was 12 years old. And my two best friends had a fight at school on a school field at lunchtime, playing single cuppies. I was in the final. My two best mates, Aaron was a small, little, geeky, scrawny kid. Adam, big, tough. All the girls fancied him. Everyone thought Adam was going to win. Adam done a Cruyff turn, done another Cruyff turn, took a shot, came off Aaron's leg, ball flew into the top corner. It was Aaron's goal. Aaron was in a final against me. Adam didn't like it, goes to Aaron, shoves him over. Aaron's hat falls off. Aaron was a geek. He played football with his backpack on. The backpack opened up, his lunch spilled on the floor. He went, don't do that. Adam went, boom, shoved him again. Aaron got up, does like a cartoon roll, done this, rolls the sleeves up, put his hands up, and Aaron is a little geek. Adam is big and tough. Everyone thought Adam's going to win this. Aaron went, Aaron smashed him on the floor. 20 seconds later, Adam, the big tough guy, was on the floor crying his eyes out. And I went, wow, Aaron, how'd you learn to do that? He said, well, I go boxing club. I want to come. I want to learn that. He went to me, there's a beginner session on tonight. I go to the advanced class. I've been going for a while, but there's a beginner session on tonight. I had no idea there was a boxing club in town. So I go to Adam. Adam's on the floor. School bell goes. Adam's on the floor, wiping his tears. And Adam's, he only won because, he goes boxing club. We should go tonight, get really good. Then you can fight him tomorrow. Then you'll win. And then you'll win. He went, I don't know. I said, mate, Becky Coleman was there. She saw the whole fight. I said, Becky will fancy you again if you beat Aaron up. And do you reckon? I said, yeah, definitely. So I went home that night, got my bicycle and bike past the sports shop. And I went in and bought a gum shield for 50p gum shield. Not knowing you have to mold a gum shield when you get it. I had no idea how to mold a gum shield. Went to Adams, gave him a seat to the boxing club, walked in the door, and I was like, I had no idea if I'd be any good or not. I thought I would because I was good at stuff. I was good at sport. I was bad at a lot of stuff. I was good at sport. I thought I have no idea if I'm gonna be good or not, but this is me. I just fell in love from the second I walked in. I just fell in love. So that was how it started. Now, why it started? I was very good at a lot of stuff, as I mentioned. I was very good at sport. No, that's a lie. I was good at two things. I was very smart at school. I was quite intelligent at school, and I was very good at sports. I'm bad at everything else. Two things I actually cared about. Mum was always about education. My dad, Nigerian, education, and sport. And I was a very angry kid growing up. And my dad was a very violent man. Never really in my life. When he was all punches and belts and very violent man. So I had a lot of anger growing up as a kid. And I was very good at sports. I excelled in sports because I liked being the best. So I got praise and people celebrated. And I liked that. And I learned a lot about when I retired from boxing many years later. I did a lot of which I told a client today actually. I went on a self-discovery journey of finding and learning about myself, why I was the way I was. I was very angry, and the sports I played, I played at Norwich Academy until I was under 14, captain of my county, Suffolk, under 14. There was still an itch that football couldn't scratch. Then I started boxing, and every itch I had, I scratched it. It was it was my calling. I got to be angry and be aggressive and get my frustration and pain. And I realized I was a little kid in pain. That's what I was. And I got to win, and I got to hit people. And in life, you hit somebody, you get told off. In boxing, you hit somebody, you get celebrated, you get congratulated, and I liked it. And yeah, it was the sport for me from a very early early age.
Fantastic. And then that took you to the London 2012 Olympics.
Well, goodness me, I mean, there's a lot. I mean, from walking in the ring as a 12-year-old to boxing Olympics at 23, there's a lot there. But yeah, in short, I I mean, there's we mentioned, I joked earlier, like how long this could be. That in itself, from my first fight to my in my life in as a boxer to my first fight in the Olympic Games. I mean, we could do a whole podcast in the 5 weeks before the Olympic Games. Like
Yeah.
mentioned in the questions, and I'm going to ask you about the Olympics. Like, is there anything people don't know? I walked to the ring. My mum, who's my hero, who raised me and my sisters on around, because my dad was not a nice man, suffered a brain aneurysm 5 weeks before. She lay in Addenbrooks, not too far from your house.
Yeah.
With her brain aneurysm in a coma. We all thought she was going to die. I thought I was never going to see her again. I didn't do a thing. I didn't throw a punch for a month. I did one sparring session before the Olympic Games. I broke my rib. I had a dislocated shoulder that came out in the qualifiers that would come out again the next year when I turned pro. I had tears on both of my Achilles tendons, which would both rupture when I turned pro. I had 2 years out of my career because my Achilles. I had a broken rib, and my mum was about to die. Or so I thought. And I sat on a ring apron after that spar, and the Vaseline was on my face, and it was doing its best job to masquerade my tears, but I was crying my eyes out, thinking, this is my life. Never gonna see my mum again, never gonna hold her hand again, right? And I went to London, and that was my Olympic Games. So people say to me all the time, oh, the Olympics in London, but it must have been amazing, right? For every other British athlete, it's the worst time of my life. It was the hardest time of my life, right? I was sneaking out of the London Village. I was sneaking out of the Olympic Village at night time to jump in my car, which I parked at Wanstead Station, drive up the M11 to go to Cambridge to sneak out. The nurses, I was in my full GB tracksuit, right? They'd let me in to see my mum, to hold her hand for a couple of hours, get back in the car and drive back to London, park back at Wanstead Central Line, back in the Stratford, walk to the Olympic Stadium, get in bed at 5 a.m., the 6 a.m. wake up call, and the day would start. I did that 3 times in the Olympics. It was the worst time of my life. It was dreadful. So I was actually very bitter. I won the bronze medal, the world champion in my second fight. I was very bitter for a long time that I didn't win the gold medal. So I should have won the gold medal. I was good enough to. I beat the best person there. And my journey, I should have. So for a long, long time, I was very bitter that I didn't get what I thought I should have got. It took me a long time to understand, well, what I did under those circumstances were
Yeah.
utterly amazing. And my mum survived, and she's still with us today, which I'm really, really proud
Amazing.
of, and I'm very happy with. But it was a tough time, man. It was a really tough time. So I left international boxing with a very bitter taste in my mouth, because Anthony Joshua won the gold medal, and Luke Campbell did, and Nicola Adams did, and I deserved that every bit and more than them. Or so I thought, and I still think to this day. But that's not how life works, right? Like, life works in funny ways. So I was very bitter, and took me on. And even now, as a professional wrestler, I am known as the Olympic boxer. That's my kind of thing. That's my character. And it's taken me a while to be proud of that, because I know I should have been the gold medalist. But listen, life happens, and we'll talk about it more, I'm sure, as my story unfolds. But I learned a lot in this process. I learned an awful lot through this period. And going through those setbacks and hardships have certainly made me the man I am today, and the coach I am today. And yeah, no, things have happened to you would happen for you. And for a long time, I was like, these things happen to me, and it's not fair. But really, you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. These happen for me to grow and to become a bigger, stronger, better person, of which I think I've become.
Yeah. No, I can't agree more on that. And like I said, I've had my sort of struggles, but certainly I don't reflect on that as if it happened to me. Yeah. I've come out stronger, and that makes me who I am now. So I'm totally, totally with you on that. I think the thing that's I had no idea about this about your mum in the sort of Team G, but at the time of the Olympics, and at the time it was such a happy moment for the country, and so to think that you're sort of putting on a front and sort of representing Team GB while this is all going on at home is incredible. And yeah, I'm a bit taken back by it, because I could imagine, like I said, it's meant to be that's the pinnacle of your career at that point, isn't it? And yeah, but like I said, to sort of, you're right, to when you take back and reflect, I guess, to handle all of that and the injuries and everything else, and still come out with bronze was pretty epic, really, wasn't it?
Thank you, buddy. Appreciate it. Appreciate it. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
the
Yeah. I
main.
mean, I could go deeper in that, but it's by the time I was the first person to box. No, I didn't go to the Olympic ceremony the night opening one because I was the first person to box on a Saturday lunchtime, and then I boxed the world a Dominican, and then I boxed the Ukrainian, the world champion, the shoe in for the gold medal. I beat him in a unbelievable, extraordinary fight. They actually changed the way they score boxing because of our fight with me and him. So it's a tremendous, tremendous fight. Then I boxed a German who was like the European champion, I think, silver medalist, really, really top fighter. And then I got beat in the semi-final. In the semi-final, I boxed a Brazilian. The hard thing to take was he was the worst person I boxed all tournament. Like everyone I'd beaten in the Olympics had beaten him that year, Olympic year. By the time I got to the semi-final, I had nothing left. Physically, emotionally, just had nothing. I told you earlier about like a day in the life for me at the Olympic Games. Had nothing left. So that was hard to take. My body kind of let me down, and that would be a recurring event. My body kind of let me down, which would follow me into into my professional career. But yeah, like say, but I'm able to look back now. I'm able to look back. And you said putting on the front. I would do all these talks, these inspiring talks. I'd take my Olympic medal out and people would go, oh, amazing. And there's a front. And then one day, I did 2 talks in one day. I'd done a talk to a primary school in Kent. Then I went to Westminster to talk to some politicians and did my same talk, but from the adult version versus the kiddie version. And I was driving home. I was living in Essex at the time. I was driving back and I don't know what it was, but I guess doing 2, and I've done my talk maybe 100 times. This is 6, 7 years after the Olympics. And it was like that day, I was like, it just dawned on me. The story I'd told, and I was acting, I was telling my story, and I was very good at telling my story because it's my story. It was that day I was like, wow, like, oof. I remembered, already, I've told this story maybe once in my life before. The Olympics it's not a fun memory for me for the aforementioned reasons. So when I tell the story, I remember stuff sometimes. And this particular day, I remember that these 2 police, the road we lived on was called Ravens Walk. The Ravens Walk. And then there's 2 police officers, 2 women, female police officers walking around. Like Bobby's doing the beat because Finbig Village, obviously, it's a gated area, but Bobby's walking around. And they recognized me from my fight from the night before. And I was on the bench crying. So my mum was going to die. And they gave me a cuddle. They gave me a little hug. You're doing really well. She's going to be really proud of you. And that moment unlocked the day I told that story and I had like a tear in my eye, like retelling the story. Yeah, it was there. I was driving home and I just thought, actually, what I did was really an incredible thing. Like, wow, like I felt very proud. So it was, don't get me wrong, I still have every now and then like a wave of like, I wouldn't say bitterness anymore, but a wave of I can't even put it into words, but a wave comes and goes sometimes.
Yeah.
But it goes much faster now. They used to stay for a while and ruin my whole month. But now it's not even. Now it's just a moment. But yeah, man, that was the Olympic Games. Professional amateur boxing. It was a wonderful. And trust me, like like it's a shame when I do these podcasts. People want to hear like the snapshots. My qualifying event to get to the Olympic Games was like that in itself is like that in itself is a little mini movie in that, just qualifying for the Olympic Games. So it was, interesting times.
Fair play. No, that's just amazing. Yeah, so obviously you got through and got your bronze medal in the Olympics, and then you had the joy of turning professional. How did that look like? And I guess
Wasn't a
obviously you
joy.
were in a difficult.
Turning
Maybe
pro
it's
was
not
a
great.
joy.
Well,
Yeah, turning pro was a joy. Turning pro was turning pro like turning pro. Mark, if you want honest, mate, I'll be honest. Turning pro. The only thing I ever wanted to do as a boxer was win an Olympic gold medal. Like my heroes, Muhammad Ali and Sugar Ray Leonard. I wanted the Olympic gold medal. That's all I ever wanted. I wasn't fussed about turning pro. Maybe had I got had I won a gold medal, I'd have probably then set my sights on the world title, probably. But I wasn't a kid wanting to be Ricky Hatton. I wanted to become Sugar Ray Leonard, win the gold medal for my country. That's all I really wanted to do. I say Hatton because Hatton didn't go to the Olympic. Hatton just went turned pro as a young man and became world champion. Tremendous hero, legend of a fighter. Rest in peace. So I turned pro because my mum and the Olympics had become one. Right, had become one, and I couldn't detach. And at this point, my mum wasn't. No, she didn't come out of coma until like late September, early October. So we had no idea if she was going to live or die, and they'd become one. I couldn't, go through another 3.5 year cycle to get to the Rio Olympics, and all those waves come back to me. I didn't get my GB Olympic kit. Going to HQ, Team Jeep HQ with the team and getting your kit was a moment I'd looked forward to. I didn't do that. I didn't go to the Olympic Games with the team. I went in my own car so I could leave and go to the hospital. So I didn't get those moments. So it was. I didn't want. I couldn't do it. I couldn't stay amateur for 4 more years to do it again. So I thought I'll turn pro. Golden Boy, the biggest promoter at the time, wanted to sign. Oscar De La Hoya personally wanted to sign me, messaging me, texting me, sending me videos, and I turned pro. But it was, and that then the world title, becoming Britain's best ever middleweight boxer, had then become my new Olympic gold medal, and that was what I put my whole life on. And then my pro debut should have been the start of my pro career. Was the best night of my pro career. Everything after that was getting worse and worse and worse. Injuries. This and that. You couldn't make. You literally, when I say you couldn't make it up, you could not make up the luck I had. Shoulder come out in one of my fights. My first fight, no, sorry, my Achilles. I was out for a full year, 4 surgeries on my Achilles. My first fight back, my shoulder comes out for another 10 months. 3 fights back, knockout. Fight for the international title. I win that. I fight for the world title, multi-million-dollar. Become world champion. My eye goes, which leads me down a 3-year path of 9 surgeries, misdiagnosis, injections, heartache, pain, agony, emotional, physical. It was a brutal time. My wife and I ended up getting divorced because I was just a horrible person to be around, I guess. And I'd lost so much, and I was the worst version of myself. And I mentioned to you before, maybe it's to my client earlier, I think my client there, I got to 30 and I lost my career, my identity, my passion, my job, my wife. I was like, I'm losing everything. And I had to do some really hard soul searching and looked inwards. And went through some self-discovery, so to speak. And I got out the other side, and it was hard and it was difficult. But like I said to you earlier, mate, and I'm glad you are as well, Mark, you're in a good spot. I'm in a really good spot. And I've just brushed past like 10 years. This is my last fight, was 2016, 10 years ago. I've just whizzed through 10 years of heartache, pain, emotion. Yeah, some good times, but some bad times too. That's my pro boxing career in a nutshell. Not many ups. My pro debut was awesome. I boxed in Vegas on a Mayweather undercard. That was cool. Had some good moments, but they were always encapsulated around injuries, setbacks, tough times, doubt, worry. So it was a challenging. It was a challenging period for sure.
Yeah, and I guess they're all the things you don't see. Like I said, I'm probably you describe me as a fair weather fan when it comes to boxing. I'll get up and watch the big fights and that, and you see like the fight. You don't see what goes on behind that. You don't see the struggle. You don't see the camps. You just there's a lot there to obviously take on, I guess, isn't there? But so let's talk about sort of life as a boxer, and you hear about boxers going into a training camp. Now, I listen to Talk Sport, and so they talk about a lot and how, like I said, those, say, 12 weeks lead up to fight is brutal. What does a typical boxing training camp look like?
Question. I never really had a typical one, honestly. There's lots of I could go and redo my career. There's lots I've changed. There's lots of, I was never really out of camp because I mentioned to you before, my injuries were like so frequent. I was always training. I was always doing my rehab to get back in the gym. And when I was back in the gym, I was back in training. I never really did a 12-week championship camp because I was always in the gym. But with that being said, lots of training, lots of one hand. People do it different ways. If I could do it in my career again, and like, this is what I mean, I torture myself sometimes thinking, if I could do a 12-week camp again, this is what I'd do. And I'd train here and I'd do that and I'd spar these days. And I've mapped out the perfect training camp in my head a million times. Never got to do it, never got to actually do it. But essentially, I'd boxing 5 days a week, five sessions a week, boxing, generally speaking, 3 cardio sessions a week, 3 strength sessions a week. Again, in a perfect world, it'd be Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Normally boxing Monday to Friday in the boxing gym, right? Generally speaking, it would normally be Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday cardio, strength, cardio, day off, then Thursday and Friday, cardio, strength, cardio, strength. Then Saturday, I'll do my hard track session, like a hard track session. And then different changes during camps, changing like during different times of camp, or like if I hadn't sparred well, if of the five boxing days, probably 2 spars, maybe 3 spars, depending where I was at in camp. And if you hadn't sparred well, needed to catch up a spar, I'd spar on a Saturday rather than the hard cardio. All right. So like, you know, what I've learned now since becoming a coach is very different. Obviously, like helping men drop weight and get in shape and training boxes is you got to be adaptable and amendable and pliable rather than too rigid. I think one of the things that if I could do all over again, I would do a lot of things differently and work with different people. But yeah, very stuck to a rigid structure because what works for one, I trained with the guy who trained Carl Froch basically, and no, I'm not Carl Froch, so I shouldn't have been training like Carl Froch trained. And like when you're young and I want to train like Froch, I'm a sparring Froch, but I'm not him, and I'm a completely different beast and completely different animal, and I should be trained in like me rather than. And again, if I can go back and do it again, I'd do it again. Wonderful, he's a wonderful coach, but wasn't right for me at that time of my career. You know, being second or third fiddle to other people when I should have been a priority to somebody else. So anyway, I don't want to get stuck in the weeds here, but yeah, like I mentioned you before, it wasn't. Turning pro was very much a what could have been rather than a what was, unfortunately. Life, man. But I got the chance to do it. This is the thing. Like it's funny. Like one person's treasure, another man's. What's that? What's that saying? One person's. You know what I'm trying to say. Yeah, Rob is up a treasure. Like I know people that would have loved to won an ABA title, an ABA boxing title. Would love to have done it. Right? I won a bunch of them. I know people that would have an England vest was so an England vest once was so out of reach. I captained England's on Worlds, Europeans, multinations all around the world, right? Junior Olympics. I've done things that people a bit. So I don't want to be ungrateful. It's just I've got some unbelievable experiences, met some really cool people, and I've lived a life thus far that people would have loved to have lived. And I've loved other people that live. When I was going through my divorce, I mentioned before, like I lived a life where like I look at people, man, wife, couple of kids, very modest house and a car, whatever. I go, I'd love that life.
Mm.
It's funny. You always want what
Mm.
you can't have, so to speak. But yeah, but it's about like I'm going through a challenge now. Like right now, I'm going through a bunch of challenges. It's probably not something we can't share on the podcast, but it's like everything I've gone through is like made me ready for this. I'm resilient for this, right? I'm ready for this, and I'll deal with this. I'll be on we'll do this for an hour and a bit. I'll look at my phone. I'll guarantee I've got 20 scary emails that come through that needs my attention. I'm ready for it. That's our life has molded me to become a person that needs to, not to know. There's 2 things going on in my life right now. I need my attention, and it's, I've got to do stuff, and it's like I will have stuff to do after this podcast. It's nice chatting to you, Mark, about stuff rather than having to do that straight away.
Hopefully I can take your mind off it for a bit. So,
Indeed.
man. Um, okay. So, like I said, we skipped over about 10 years where you finished your last professional fight and you had a time of reflection and finding a new identity. How did you decide where to go next?
I did an interview, mate. I did an interview. So I was a boxer for 18 years, and it was March. I think it was March 19th, March 11th, 2019. It was. That was my retirement day. So my office, my agents, my old sports agency office was in central London. We went there, and all the media came, and one by one, brutal it was. One by one, I was interviews. I'm retiring from boxing. I'm not boxing anymore. And my first interview was with Mike Costello, the BBC journalist, and I knew Mike quite well. And I was sitting there and announced my retirement, and I had these big cartoon-like tears in my eyes, just waiting to kind of drop down. And I was trying not to cry, and he could see. He says to me, "Well, you're still a young man. Like, what's next?" And I purely out of, I'd watched something on Twitter on my phone when I was getting the tube into London. The Rock when he was a wrestler when back in the 90s. I said, I used to love wrestling. I might become a wrestler. Ha ha ha. Joke. on the Wednesday, that was Monday. On the Wednesday, I got an email from WWE saying, "We've seen the interview. You've been serious. We'd love to like talk to you." And I was like, "I guess." So they flew me out to Orlando for a tryout. And then I was like, "Oh no, I've got a friend of mine who's actually a former wrestler, Diamond Dallas Page. He's a big wrestler back in the 90s. I'm mates with him." So I called that and I'm like, "What do you reckon I should do?" And he said to me, "Have you seen AEW? AEW is a brand new wrestling company. Hadn't even had a show at this point. They just formulated like literally a few months before. They had a show the next month. Do you want to come and meet them?" And they're based in Atlanta. So I met them and I met the boss and they loved my story and they offered me a contract. So I had a bit of a choice and I chose AEW because I chose AEW. I felt aligned to the brand and it was new and it was cutting edge and it was exciting. Right, but honestly, before even realizing I was a wrestler a month ago. Now so I was a boxer a month ago, and now I'm a professional wrestler. You know, but it was really strange because I wanted to be a boxer. Honestly, I had two. When I retired, I had 7 surgeries on my eye. After announcing my retirement, I had 2 more surgeries in the hope that it would still fix it when the pressure was off, so to speak. And neither of them worked. Yeah, and then I'm a wrestler now. It gave me something else to focus on. Gave me something else to focus on, and it was really fun learning a new. And I've genuinely been a fan since I was a kid. Genuinely been a hard. I've been a huge fan since I was a kid, and I loved the art, I loved the storytelling, I loved so much about it.
Yeah.
And I've always loved acting as well, and I loved acting, and I loved being like a showman and wrestling when I was 30. Just ticked every single box I needed. I had this youthful zest left in me. It's that this unbelievable. Other on my eye down, my body was perfect. I was fit, I was strong, I was healthy. And other than my eye, I couldn't see very well, my left eye. But I wanted to, just do something athletic and perform. And it took the athletic thing, it took the performance thing, the acting thing, which I always thought I saw myself long term in front of a camera in some capacity. This is like the perfect bridge. And I thought to myself, at 40, I'll get a real job. I don't know what real job means, but at 40, I'll get a real job. And I was 30. I always thought, mate, if again, go back to my mapping of my career, if I could have written my career, I'd have become a boxer, the Olympics 23, London world champion 27, until I was 35, retire at 35, and for 5 years, have kids, just be a dad and just like get fat and out of shape because I've been so locked in for so long. And then at 40 and just enjoy life, right? Smoke cigars and drink whiskey and stuff. And at 40, I'd get my next job. That will see me through the rest of my days. Because after 5 years of like, blowing all my money, because in my head, obviously, multi-millionaire world champion, I need to get some structure and a real job. And I thought, well, I'm retired at 30 now. I've bought myself like I bought myself 10 years to do something fun. And I thought, I'm going to do wrestling. That's what I've done. And I became a wrestler. And it hasn't quite, up until now, hasn't quite gone the way that I'd have liked. I'm not quite the Rock, the second coming of the Rock just yet. Wrestling's a funny industry, and I really enjoy performing. And it twists and turns, and hopefully I'll get an opportunity to be the second coming of the Rock or the first version of Anthony Ogogo. We'll see, but no, it's fun. It's cool. I mean, I'm enjoying it, and it's nice. It's nice.
Yeah.
Honestly, I was running away from honestly, why I did it, I was, again, don't get me wrong, everything I've said is deadly true. Everything I've said is 100% true. I was also running away from England and boxing and the life I knew in England, right? And I got divorced, so I was running away from my life. Because even with boxing, growing up, my ex-wife is my high school sweetheart. So I was getting away from a lot, and I've come over here and I've been able to kind of rebuild my life, and I've got an amazing, beautiful partner. I've got a wonderful little baby girl, and I've got a career that I really enjoy, and I have my coaching business that I love helping people. It's not even losing weight, man. Mark, we'll talk about this maybe now. Like, I've done this. I've coached close to 1,000 men, helping them drop weight, build muscle, get in the best shape of their life. It's never really about losing weight. It's not what it's really about. That's the thing. It's never about the thing, ever, in anything we do. And I say to people all the time on our first call, I say, "Hey, are you a boxer? Are you planning on becoming a boxer?" He goes, "No." You're an MMA fighter. You planning on becoming it? No, 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 not at all. Are you a jockey? They go, no. So, okay, so you wanting to get down to X weight doesn't really matter, does it? It's not really about the weight because if you're not going to, you haven't got a weigh in to compete at a certain thing, the weight's irrelevant. Oh yeah, no, you say it like that. No, it's not about the
Mm.
weight. It's about you becoming something that you're proud of, and what you've done. You've attached bad habits or emotion to the weight. We attach emotion to the weight, so we're not really getting down to 12 and a half stone, wherever it may be. We're shedding ourselves of the neglect, of the lack of self-love, of the lack of discipline, and we're becoming a better, stronger, more resilient, determined, driven person. That's what we do. And normally losing weight is a vehicle to become the person that you want to become. And you're not a mark, so I guess this resonates with you. And that's what I love doing. And I truly
Mm.
get told, truly, twice a week. Again, and this is for men as well. So men obviously we're a bit more guarded. You've changed my life. Oh, thank you, you've changed my life. It's never about thank you for helping me lose weight. It's thank you for changing my life. Changing my life. When men have struggled and then the Weight Watchers or the Slimming World or the up and down and the yo-yo diet and they come, it's like, hang on. And I swear on my life, I've got a working with a guy right now from New Jersey, Don Diapatrick. That's a Croatian last name. He said to me today, he said to me, I've tried everything to lose weight, everything, and I couldn't do it. Now, and I get this all the time. Now, I'm struggling. I've now got to force myself my dessert. I don't even want the dessert. I don't want the protein, the protein yogurt he puts in the freezer and chucks his blueberries on. I don't want it. But I've got to force it down myself. I went, so let's just establish what you're doing. You've struggled to lose weight your entire life. Now you're struggling to eat all the food and you're still losing weight. Yeah, 10 pounds down in a month. And I don't even want to eat the food. I'm eating more food than I want to eat. So it's like when the people and then they're more energy, happier, less brain fog, feeling better about themselves. When you see that time and time and time again from a program that I built through the ups and the downs and the twists and the turns from my own boxing career and wrestling career, it's like, oh no, I'm doing good in the world. I'm doing good. This is cool. So yeah, that's pretty much me, mate. That's pretty much me.
Flown through your career there. We'll get on to the sort of the weight loss and everything. I just wanted to pick up one thing and just sort of
Of
say,
course,
I've just got into wrestling quite recently. I've got three kids, three boys. I've got a 12-year-old, a 9-year-old, and an 8-year-old.
amazing.
So I went to wrestling for the first time. I'd never been to a wrestling thing, just in my local town hall in St Ives a few weeks ago. And that's the
What show
best.
was it? What was the promotion?
They were called School of Wrestling, but it's a fairly small one. They just go around sort of small sort of
Hmm.
market towns. But it was just the most fun I'd had in a night in a
Awesome,
long time. And it was
awesome, man.
the kids were like, oh, I don't know if I want to go. And then by the end of it, everything was, I loved it. I really like the bad guys. I know you're a bad guy, aren't you, in what you do? I think the bad guys are the best characters in it.
Yeah. So, mate, yeah, bad guys have more fun. So wrestling is. I'm glad you had a good time. We're wrestling at Wembley Stadium August 30th. So my keep in touch, man. See if I can get you and the kids some tickets. And I'm back in Butlins. I was back for Butlins. Did
You
a
doing
2 week
Butlins, are you?
I did a 2 week tour in Butlins last year. I'm back in August doing Butlins as well. So they're so much fun, so much fun.
I'm
It's
going to Butlins with the kids, actually.
in August.
July.
Might miss. I'm back over in August. I'm not too sure. So I'm back. We had a big Wembley show at Wembley Stadium. So I'm back doing promo for getting some wrestling in Butlins and doing promo for Wembley. But wrestling it's an amazing art form. It really is. And I'll tell you what wrestling is. I'll tell you exactly what wrestling is and why everyone can enjoy wrestling. Now I'm not saying that you're going to be hardcore. You're going to stay up until 2 a.m. to watch the pay-per-views, but everyone can watch wrestling can enjoy something about to do with wrestling because it's like what wrestling is. This is my take on what professional wrestling is. It's kind of like the West End, right? Like Broadway, like the theatre, because we're telling stories. We're using our bodies to tell stories. It's like the opera, right? They don't speak in English. They sing in Italian. No one understands what's going on, but they're telling a story with their voice and their bodies, right? It's like opera. It's like the Broadway. It's like the West End. But it's not the West End, right? And then it's like it's positioned itself like boxing or like MMA, where it's like there's world title belts and you have world champions and you have divisions and world rankings, and it's like sport. So the West End, you have those top people who like the West End. Then you got like it's portrayed like in a sport, right? With characters, you people who like sport and like winning and competition. But it's also like weekly episodic TV, like EastEnders. To me, it's like storylines continue each week, and there's this and that and that, and it's the coming together of a boxing slash MMA slash the theatre slash episodic soap opera TV. Put all together, that's pro wrestling. That ticks a lot of different boxes. Right? That ticks a lot of different boxes, right? And regularly, grown men, grown women are crying at wrestling shows because they're so invested in the story. People go, "That's silly." A grown up crying at wrestling. It's like, hang on, did you cry when you watched Titanic? Or did you cry when you watched Man on Fire? Did you get a tear in your eye when you watched so and so? It's like it's storytelling. Other than you go into the movies and like watching Dirty Dancing or Grease or bloody Ghost or something like that, and you still get emotional when you watch it, like I do, because I'm grown up, and you know the ending, you go in there and you're suspending your disbelief. You know they're not really hate each other, although they do sometimes. You're going there to enjoy the spectacle of the show, and then good wrestling takes you on a journey, on an emotional journey, right? And that's what pro wrestling is. And I always say, like, I love James Bond is my favorite. I love James Bond. Like, in another world, I become James Bond. That's a dream of mine. I love Bond. But I know when I watch Bond at the cinema, it's not really James Bond. I know it's Daniel Craig. I know it's not really James Bond. And guess what? I know he's not going to die. He's not going to get killed, but I know he's going to get the girl because he's James Bond. I know at the end of the movie, after 2.5 hours, spending 15 quid buying a ticket, that's going to be the outcome. The only difference, we do the exact same thing. The only difference is we're the ones taking the actual moves. We're getting slammed on the floor. We're getting hit with objects. We're actually getting hit. It's the exact same thing, right? But it's live and it's real, and it hurts. Daniel Craig has probably never hurt himself doing a stunt for James Bond. We always hurt ourselves doing wrestling. So they're the big differences. But it's storytelling. Yeah.
Yeah, real, just full on entertainment. And when you've got three boys, there's just nothing better. And so
I know.
we are. Well, we were fully invested. Well, bring it back to boxing actually. So I took them to that wrestling match, and they loved it. And then we got home, and then it was the Moses Toma fight, his last fight on the telly. So we got back and we saw him as well, and it was like, wow. Now
What a
I've got
day.
three boys. Yeah, it was. Now I've got three boys pumping full of testosterone. Like, right, what's next? I have to say, actually, my youngest, Caden, I'll give him a shout out. I'll not really mention my kids on here, but Caden's recently started MMA and absolutely loves
Awesome.
it.
Yeah.
So
Do you know what? It's
this,
like it's one of those ones where MMA is safer than boxing. Tell you why. It's sports like any sport, but especially something like that. It's like you learn so much about yourself. You learn respect, discipline for yourself, for others, for referees, for authority. I'm not a big lover of MMA, honestly, but I don't watch boxing anymore either since I hurt my eyes. A bit too painful for me still. So I've kind of like withdrawn myself. However, boxing's given me everything in my life. I've got my mindset, my attitude, things emotionally, things materially. Boxing has given me. Now, the difference between MMA and boxing, especially for a kid, is in boxing you get punched in the head. You punch in the head, punch in the head, punch in the head. MMA you don't really. You take way less punches to the head. Yes, you grapple. Yes, you get moves, but you take way less bludgeons to the head. And getting punched in the head is not a good thing. I got punched in the head probably 50,000 times in my life from 12 to 30. It's going to catch up with me at some point, if it hasn't already. So it's like getting kids in combat sports is so good, I think, at an early age. It teaches them so much, things that if they make it, amazing. If they don't make it, then they can learn things that can take them through the rest of their life. And the fact it's not getting punched in the head is really good as well, because like I said, it's not the most fun thing for a kid to get punched in the head.
this, yeah, that's it. It's very early days for him. He's done it just because he enjoys doing it. He's got his first opportunity to do a grading event, I think, in a few weeks' time. So I think we're getting ready for that.
That was awesome.
But yeah, he's when you were talking about your mates earlier, and it was the small sort of nerdy one who had this technique. That's Caden. He's the smallest of the three, He's the youngest, but he is smallest in his frame
Yeah.
and everything. Yeah, he's got that bit about him though, and I just
Yeah.
think something like MMA is just brilliant for him.